Awesome. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, just explaining to the audience who you are and what you do.
Sure. My name is Dr. Tom Czyz. I'm a been an optometrist for over 20 years now. And about 4 years ago or so, my wife and I decided to get into the beverage industry, and that's been a long-standing road. And to cut it short, about 2.5 years ago, one of my good friends that I went to Arizona State with, and fraternity brother, him and his wife developed Guitar Hero, Rock Band, Arc Survival is his game. And he had asked us what we were doing with our beverage company at the time to start helping him produce healthy products for gamers, trying to alleviate the fact of the whole persona that he didn't like for 25, 30 years in gaming of kids or what have you being in the basement with Mountain Dew and Cheetos. So we've been on a 2.5 year tear here of just working at grassroots with esports players, with athletes, esports athletes, gamers, streamers, everybody at the grassroots, from surveys all the way through the branding, through picking the flavors and flying them into the lab to develop our product Sly. And now I've just been going around for the past 2 years, just meeting people across the industry and learning and listening from them.
Awesome. I was introduced to Sly a few months back. I remember there was a LinkedIn post and I might have interacted and I was thinking like, oh, this is really cool because the experience I had with as you mentioned, like the gamers just eating like Cheetos, etc., and drinking energy drinks. Experience I had was very similar to that when I was living in student apartments, and these undergraduate students, they would just sit up playing games all night using these horrible products for their health. And like again, the Cheetos and these energy drinks, some people think that you can survive off of this stuff, but it's only a short-term solution. Long term, it's just going to mess up your health. So I'm very grateful for what you're doing, doctor.
Well, I appreciate that. And we were at a conference. We were invited by, if you're familiar with Tactical Grandma, she plays Call of Duty and really plays well against kids and beats them up a little bit. But we were invited to a content creator um, conference called Loot Fest down in Dallas. And they invited my wife and I and my 13-year-old daughter, who's a big Overwatch and Fortnite player. And she mentioned us, who's going to be there? My daughter, and oh, it's some person named Dr. Lupo. And I didn't know who Dr. Lupo was. I guess and we met him. So Dr. Lupo came up to us as we're, giving him some samples of Sly, and he said, this is genius what you guys have done as far as a chill product. And we just kind of looked at him and said, this is not our genius. We asked gamers, we asked streamers what they wanted. And what they told us in our initial survey 2.5 years ago was they didn't want sugar, caffeine. They wanted healthier products. And more importantly, they wanted things to relax them and calm them down, like my daughter playing Fortnite till midnight and then needs to go to school the next day. So again, when you listen, that is where the gold is. And that's how we ended up here.
There's one question I always wanted to ask because for me, I'm not familiar with the process of how you kind of got into the gaming industry. So what is the first experience for you as kind of your we'll call it the your favorite game, for example. Let's start there.
Yeah, sure. I mean, my gaming experience goes back to when I was 9 or 10 years old, when I had a family restaurant in Phoenix. I'm originally from New Jersey, and on my off hours, because it was just the five of us running the restaurant, there was an arcade in the mall that we were in. And in between hours of not work, I would be running down playing every Donkey Kong game that I probably could imagine, between Donkey Kong, Asteroids, Centipede, Pac-Man, Miss Pac-Man. It was back and forth, taking quarters from my parents, boom, going down to the arcade. And that's really where my gaming experience, came in. Fast forward life, and here you are going through school, college, optometry school, three daughters that I have. And come full circle, my buddy from college creates Guitar Hero and Rock Band, and that's what brought us back into this. was basically my wife's hatred with water that had us create our first product called Intent. That was mainly getting picked up not by yoga and soccer moms like my wife wanted. It was picked up by professional athletes, Phoenix Suns, Arizona Cardinals, Team USA racquetball picked us up as an official drink partner, and we realized that we had something, but it was the wrong packaging. And at that time, that's where Doug Kennedy, I'll call him Guitar Hero guy, reconnected with me and said, "Hey, what are you doing? Let's do this in the gaming industry because there's all these bad products. Let's create something different." And that's really how I kind of full circle back into the gaming industry. And then just talking with people like yourself and LinkedIn and just talking to coaches, all across the country and meeting with them and learning about their programs and esports and just content creators and what they do for a living has just been a wealth of knowledge and experience to kind of bring our endemic brand to gaming, into play. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, you answered it perfectly. The explanation I want the audience to understand from the way the doctor explained is there's many products in the gaming industry which we're all familiar with, maybe Red Bull, for example. You can't survive off of Red Bull. And a lot of people, the more you consume these kinds of products, they're not designed to keep your body in a state of calmness when you're relaxed, right? When you gave the example of your daughter going to school after a gaming session. So
Yeah.
that next day when your daughter's going to school, you need to be able to not only relax the body, but heal the body from that gaming session. And so this is the extreme value that you've been able to create. And this entire experience where someone like me, when I was younger, products like Sly, for example, they weren't accessible. They didn't really exist. And a lot of people, they're so fortunate now because they're able to continue these gaming sessions, recover very quickly the next day, and go to another event or gaming session or whatever it may be, and they'll be healed. Like they'll have the energy, they'll have the priority and be able to focus. So this is something where for a lot of people in the gaming industry, they might not think it's revolutionary, but to someone like me who's been doing this ever since I was super young, and I'm trying to get people to improve their not only their biological ability to game and be able to be healthy in school and at work, etc., but the psychological ability as well. So this is really important work that you're doing.
Well, and it's the background as being optometrist, and I've had eye problems since I was 4 years old. That's why I landed in optometry. But your body is built on your sleep wake cycle and your circadian rhythm, and that's what we based our products around. And that's where my wife came up with the idea. Let's create products that actually have a point to them for, let's say, your morning, noon, and night, so to speak, or that actually can keep you in sync. And when you look at people that are not in sync, that's where my friend Doug came to us and said, like, listen, we've got people out of whack here that are content creators that are, training for, Call of Duty championships, like Dylan Envoy, who's playing this weekend. I'm headed to Call of Duty tomorrow to the finals. They're constantly training and they need time to replenish. They need time to relax, and that's why we've created different products. We have Chill. We have a product called Dream, which really helps you sleep. And then we have a product that we'll release in the future called Boost, which has no caffeine, but it's just there to sort of calm you and help you focus, with clarity if you need something like that, whether that be, studying, training, whatever that you might need that for. But it's all sort of based on your sleep wake cycle and your circadian rhythm.
Doctor, one question I'm sure people in the audience will have in the future, we have to ask you this is what are some of the more uncommon problems you've seen in terms of the gaming industry that people haven't addressed?
Well, I think one at the top of my head, and that has to do with my daughter, is the inclusion more of women. I think the degradation of women playing games. As I saw my 9-year-old at the time, just getting bombasted with really bad stuff. And luckily she's got a thick skin and loves the game, so she wasn't going to stop. But I think that's number one that comes out of my mind that came out initially, that I was extremely surprised, and that just hit home. I think that's one thing that is slowly changing. The more that I talk with esports coaches, the more that you have groups like the Gamers, which is a great organization, Galaxy Racer, which now has her Galaxy, people like Bethany Piles, who works for Galaxy Racer. I've gotten a great relationship with her. You know, I think those things, Fem Gaming, Jessica out of Toronto, these are things that are going to come to the forefront. And I think these small people, as you might call them, I think will slowly be alienated in a way when you've got 48% of the population that are gamers or females. I think that's a big market that I think a lot of people, or let's say companies, won't want to put aside. I think the other thing is just learning more about esports and esports organizations. I think there's been a transition, or not a transition, maybe a downswelling of their saying of esports. Maybe it's because of the IPO of FaZe and what's happened. I don't think it's going to stop. I think it's just going to continue. This is sort of a I wouldn't say a downward spiral. It's just something that happens within industries. And I think that esports organizations really need to take a hard look at their revenue income, and it can't be only from sponsorships. I think they need to get and diversify their portfolios, whether it be investing in other industries, whether it be investing in products like ours that are endemic to gaming, where they can have the ability for their fandom to basically build a portfolio of wealth inside of companies that match their mantra. When you take a look at Optic, I mean, Optic Gaming, 10 to 15 million raving fanatical fans that I saw hands down at Arlington this past spring for Call of Duty. It was amazing thing, eye-opening experience to see that type of fandom. And again, I think things will innovate and transition. You'll have some drop off of organizations, but I think from Valorant to League of Legends to Madden, all of that, I think all boats, will rise to the top.
For many people in the audience, the way we experience gaming is different. So from someone who's more familiar with like NFL or the NBA, for example, these are very physical sports where your body takes a huge psychological toll in the short term, and you might be able to recover physically if you're injured, but usually the physical injuries are more serious in these more hands-on contact sports. However, in esports, what Doctor's trying to explain is that you're going to have many esports teams and organizations who, the reason why they're dependent on sponsorships is because they don't understand the way the Doctor explained this uncommon problem people aren't really aiming to create solutions for, is the inclusivity, right? Having that 48% of people who identify as females, right? These women. What do you do for this segment of the entire gaming industry, right? There's all these people who, many of these organizations, like you mentioned, Optic Gaming, for example, what are they doing for women in the esports industry? And these are questions where you have to start to ask yourself, there are certain things that you could invest in where it's something like, as you mentioned, fem gaming. This is something where you have a community, right? Safe. And first of all, you can have the entire community inclusive. This is something which hasn't existed before in the gaming industry. Nobody has done this successfully in the past. And the reason is the way the Doctor explained it, there's a lot of people who they either will talk negatively or they'll just not consider the 48% of characters who are female. And so you'll have this huge discrepancy where there's opportunity, but then a lot of people just seem to either not be aware of it or they just don't care, or even other cases where they're aware of it and they care, but the attention, it's not highlighted in the gaming industry. So this is something where the Doctor is correct and explained it perfectly. So thank you.
Well, I think another avenue of that is mental health. Mental health is big. Mental health is big just as a problem across the country, but I think also, just gaming can help with mental health. Gaming is a positive thing. I mean, I have a good friend. He goes by the tagline Street Taco Eater. His name's Rob Davis out of Dallas. And he's just a phenomenal person. He's He just turned 60. Not that I want to age him, but he doesn't look it. He's a great guy. He owned a CrossFit facility, one of the biggest in the country, and just moved on. And he talks a lot about the positive viewpoints of gaming and mental health. And I think it's absolutely true. When you look at gaming and you look at what it does and playing a game, whether it's competitively or just hanging around playing with friends, it's escapism. It's something that you go home, that the average gamer is 34, 35 years old, whether people realize that, with a home and a child. And now people are coming home from work and the parents are going and they're playing games with their kids. Now, I think that's a great way of building community inside the home, but then also outside the home, like my daughter playing games with people in Europe during COVID. So I think the mental health aspect of it, the inclusion of people. There was one interesting study that was, I wish I would have saved it. Maybe I did. But what they did was, at a high school, they brought together, let's just say, the classic jocks, and they brought together the classic geeks, so to speak. And let's say, that's all athletes. And then you've got maybe the computer nerds, so to speak. And I don't want to use those type of terminology, but that sets the story. And what they did was, interesting enough, they put the athletes and the jocks with the computer guys and girls and the geeks, and they had them play games together. And what they found out was that all of a sudden, the bullying went away. The bullying subsided. And you know who was bullying who. I don't have to tell you that story. But as they learned about one another, and they basically understood that they had this glue together and an open conversation, all of a sudden, there wasn't that much bullying anymore. And I think the world needs more of that. And I think gaming can be a conduit to that in a lot of different ways, and in a lot of different problems that we have in our own general society. And that's why I think the gaming industry at $210 billion a year worldwide will continue to grow and grow and grow. And whether you have a child that maybe is not athletically inclined, or maybe, for that matter, male or female, might be in a wheelchair, when they play esports, they're on a competitive nature with a guy or a girl who can run a 4.40. They're on the same platform. And I think that's an amazing thing, from that vantage point, that creates positive mental health for everybody.
Yeah, this is the point which it's probably one of the most important benefits to esports, where, for the first time in history, many years ago, people were playing board games like Go, and you had to train seriously to play a board game like Go because it's very complex. The problem now is we have these esports, which are super complex, and the skill level is super high. But the beauty of esports is that anybody can compete, because it's about your brain capacity, which anybody who, even if you're disabled, right, you could be in a wheelchair, as the doctor said, you can still compete with someone who was a D1 athlete. You don't need to be the person who is saying, oh, I can't get a scholarship to school because I'm disabled. No. If you have the brain capacity, this is the important part. Your brain function determines your ability in esports. You don't need to have the biggest muscles or the fastest time on the track. Your brain, nowadays, people are hooking up entire controls to their brain only. They don't even use their hands, they just use their brain. And so people will think esports is something where you might have to practice and be insanely gifted or talented at a game, which isn't true, right? It's just about your ability to adapt and then learn these patterns. And then again, your capacity to understand the game and then accept what is, the most efficient tactic available, and then remaining ethical so you don't break any laws, etc. You can compete with anybody. You can compete with NBA players, for example, in some games,
Sure.
because a whole bunch of people will be playing games and everybody is involved in this inclusivity. It doesn't matter, what race or culture you are. It's something that can involve all of humanity.
Well, and you look at different parts of our own culture, from the African American community and the college scene, the HBCUs. They're really entrenched in gaming. There's a conference every year in Nashville. I think it's Nashville. It's this year that I'm going to try to attend called BitCon. That's all involved with technology inside the African American community. You've got Ryan Johnson with community. There's just all aspects of this, and when everybody comes together as a group, it's just a really positive vantage point. Because when you look at, just take esports scholarships, $20 million last year in esports scholarships, and I know some of those scholarships for women, there wasn't enough in the population going out for those scholarships that money got in a sense thrown out. And when you look at the stats that I read, 65% of esports kids, athletes, are STEM kids. What university doesn't want a STEM kid? I think that if a lot of universities, colleges don't get on the bandwagon of esports and stop, let's just say, poo-pooing it, that it's not a real sport, they got another thing coming. You talk to somebody like Amon Green, former running back for the Green Bay Packers. He's become a friend. He's become a part of our Sly team. He's the director of esports, University of Nebraska. And he told me, directly, he said, Tom, he's like, training for esports is just as hard as when I played professional football. And people need to understand that. It's just a different animal in a different way, but you train. There's a lot of mental capacity with it, and like his athletes, they've got to get up and exercise. I mean, you got to get up off your chair, and you have to do the same things just like when you train. So as I've gone through, 2 years of learning about athletes and connecting with them, and from the pros to the amateurs to the kids to the scholarship players at college, they have to train, and they understand what they can and they can't do. And again, it's just something that's there. And you've got NBA players like Devin Booker for the Phoenix Suns. Me locally, I'm in Phoenix, Scottsdale area. To Marquise Brown, who plays for the Arizona Cardinals. He's a part of our Sly team now, and these are all been organic because they like the products, and they like what we're trying to do inside of gaming to promote health and wellness. And we're not the only ones. We've collaborated with a number of companies that are all pushing this envelope forward of health and wellness in gaming to try and get rid of that persona that we talked about earlier. And it's just important for everybody to sort of keep feeding the fire in order to get rid of that persona that my buddy Doug Kennedy wants to get rid of.
Yeah, the effect of esports when I was younger, because I'm 24 years old right now. When I was younger, I didn't know esports as it exists right now with like sponsorships and investors. I didn't know that happened. I was just used to like going to local LAN center or a gaming cafe, for example. And I would sit at one of these like gaming cafes or a LAN center, play my games, enjoy a good time with friends. And then maybe after school, I'd go and I'd game with friends. And we didn't really understand the impact of video games at the time because we would just play for fun, right? It was something we did as a hobby together. We enjoyed it, and it was something where even though we were super competitive and we had tournaments and things like that, none of us could have predicted what would have happened to the esports industry. So from probably around the age of 8 or 9, I'm playing games with my friends, and everybody's super involved in terms of having fun. What I noticed is that a lot of the psychological benefits of esports started to appear in a lot of my friends. So, for example, almost every single person who was a serious, like you call them, hardcore gamers, they'll just have these gaming sessions, and then, as you explained earlier, with the ability to work with your circadian rhythm and then being able to recover effectively, a lot of these hardcore gamers couldn't do that, and so they had to figure out ways to optimize their health in order to game. And so they went from that typical stereotype gamer to these people who are super healthy, like they're going to the gym, they're like exercising more than me. And I've been an athlete my entire life, and some of these esports cyber athletes that are professionals now, they're healthier than I am, and I'm very serious about my health. So the way that I talk about health in esports is that it's a very difficult thing to attain some of these professional cyber athlete statuses, because you're not only having to be a professional gamer, you also have to be a professional physical athlete as well. And so you're not able to just live in one world anymore. You have to combine the two worlds. And most people don't understand that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's true. Again, it continues to evolve, and it continues to get out into the stratosphere as far as understanding, what an esports athlete is. I mean, my buddy Doug explains it, quite succinctly when we used to talk about NASCAR. NASCAR years ago was laughed at. Oh, they're not athletes. No, they're not athletes. It wasn't until NBC and the like TV stations got in the car and drove in the car with the drivers, male or female, and saw what they actually put themselves through, that they finally got realized as athletes. And Doug talks in the same way, and I agree with him, is that when people, media, really understand what an esports athlete does, they will be more inclined to understand why they're known as an esports athlete, because of all the things that they have to do throughout the week, and the concentration and the discipline, all those things that go along with it. And not everyone's going to end up a Dylan Envoy Hannon who plays for the LA Thieves, or a Scump. Not everybody's going to do that. It's same as not everybody's going to end up Tom Brady or Marquise Brown or an Amon Green. It's not gonna happen. But when you realize, like I did, and that was at my buddy Doug literally sitting my wife down on a screen like this and telling us, don't give your 13-year-old daughter at the time, or 12-year-old at the time, don't give her grief about playing games, because you realize all of these different careers that are there for her. We didn't know. We were just parents that were just, stop playing games, stop playing. But realize after, when I was 10 years old, I was playing Donkey Kong every day. If I could have made that into a career, I would have loved that. But realizing and explaining from an industry person like Doug to say, listen, there's coding, there's travel, there's production, there's all of these different things that she could do if she really loves the industry, that I never realized till somebody in the industry opened up my eyes. And then all of a sudden, that Christmas, my daughter's got a gaming PC. She's all set up. She's got her monitor. She's got her chair. And I'm like, go at it with parameters, but go at it. Because if that's something that she loves, then there's all these different career paths that I think a lot of parents don't really understand. And that's another thing that we're trying to push, is that, inside of our company being endemic to gaming, you've got pop culture where there's, as I like to say, 4 pillars. There's gaming, traditional sports, music, and entertainment. They're all intertwined. They're all intertwined now. And they all act upon one another within pop culture. Look at movies like Mario Brothers. I think the highest grossed movie this year, even beat out Vin Diesel's movies this year, what have you. So again, you see that in pop culture gaining, and it's to be expected. The baby boomers don't really know much about gaming or what have you. They're the ones watching sort of regular sports, and then you've got the underbelly of the younger millennials, Gen Z, and now alphas that are leaning more towards watching gamer streamers, influencers that everybody heard of. I mean, who'd heard of Mr. Beast? Bam. I mean, so, again, it's just an interesting thing. And for us as a company, we want to support esports programs across the country. We have particular things that we're doing, like with Amon Green at Nebraska and University of Oklahoma and Grand Canyon University. And we want to help support, those programs, because a lot of them may not be supported by their schools. So we want to do whatever we can to support and prop up these programs and the students that are in those programs, to really highlight what they're doing, both at an athletic standpoint, but also in a career platform.
So, Doctor, one question I want to ask before we finish here in about 10 minutes. This question is important because a lot of people will not have the same environment in our peer group your daughter has, where she has her gaming PC set up, and within those parameters that you have, that's a safe environment. She can grow and learn in this environment where there's endless opportunities from, as you mentioned, STEM slash e-STEAM entrepreneurship, and there's a whole bunch of things where you can become graphic designer to, as you said, a programmer. Then you can build different environments in terms of like set production for these films, right? They're making Mario Brothers, right? Who makes the set for Mario Brothers animations, right? Like you have to think there's so many opportunities in terms of jobs and careers that before most people wouldn't have access to these things because they didn't know about them.
Mhm.
So, doctor, the question is, how would you set these parameters for a parent?
Setting parameters for a parent. I mean, I think parenting one is a challenge because there's no manual when you have your baby at the house. Here at the hospital, here you go. No manual. Off on your way. Um, I think it's more common sense, and I think it's having an open mind, just like my wife and I had to what Doug had us to say about gaming. And also, you get as you move along in life, and you're only 24 or so, and it's I'm 53 today. It's my birthday today. I don't certainly don't feel 53, and I certainly don't want to act like I'm old by any stretch of the imagination. But you got to take yourself in and listen, like I said, and just like we listen to our daughter about why she likes to play games and how it creates an environment for her for good mental health, for fun, for escapism from school and homework. And it's common sense stuff. I think you need to exercise, you need to get out and play, and you need the sun and the vitamin D. But then there's the avenues of, you want to play games for 2 or 3 hours, you want to get involved in tournaments because maybe you're not in a sense a traditional sports athlete. And then also the learnings of that there are these different career paths that are out there. There's certain organizations, I think what is called Land Fest, and they literally act in places that maybe are not of extreme wealth and privilege, that they provide resources for games. Think of it almost like a boys and girls club, for gaming. There are resources out there. There are great organizations out there and franchises like XP League. Ava and Jay, who founded that, a couple out of North Carolina. That's a great organization for kids to get involved with. And there's organizations and there's companies willing to support and bring in esports programs into whether it be elementary school, middle school, and high school that are there to help support the gaming community and bring those in with the offshoot of learning about these things. A buddy of mine, Collegiate Esports International (CESI), Gordon Hinkle, he'd probably be one I think that I can introduce you to him to interview. But creating those boundaries are all driven by your own um, personal viewpoint and how you want to discipline your kids in that way. But creating some boundaries is important, just like with cell phones and other things in this day and age. But I think it's more the parents need to have an open mind, and they need to listen and learn from their kids and their friends that are playing games and why they're doing it. And then also, like I said, try not to be long-winded, to reflect on your own childhood. Did you play games when you were a kid? I mean, I think everybody did. I mean, I think it's just a natural thing, and even if that's playing a board game like Monopoly, who hasn't played Monopoly? I mean, you're a gamer. You're a gamer in some way, shape, or form. So again, reflecting on that and not being so stringent on your own adulthood, let's just say. Take a chill pill. Maybe you need to have a sly and relax, when you talk to your kids.
So, doctor, as we finish here, let people know one piece of advice which you would recommend that they do with their children, whoever's interested in gaming or esports. What's one thing that they can do right now that's going to help them set up their child for a better future?
Well, I think when it involves gaming, that maybe if you don't game, as a parent, watch your kid, watch them play. If they let you watch them play, just get engaged, be knowledgeable in the sense of caring that they're playing games. What games you play? What do you like to play? Who are you playing with? Um, for me, it's kind of like I'm trying to learn how to use a darn controller because I'm used to like joystick guy, 153, so joystick guy. Um, but I think just engaging with, let your kids know that you care about it. And if you can engage and play games or just sit there and watch them play, like one of the things that I do, because I can't right now play with my daughter because I said, you got to coach me how to use one of these things. I go to a local restaurant that she loves to go to, and they have two stand-up old-time video games that I'm used to. And we'll sit there and play, and I'll pull up old Centipede or Space Invaders or whatever. And you know what happens is I kick her butt and she gets crashed because she doesn't know how to use a joystick. She's used to the controller. And then we'll go home and then she'll try to teach me how to play on a controller. And then it's the opposite. But I think it's just basic engagement. It's basic engagement. And then also letting the child know that, hey, if you really like this industry, like there are opportunities for you to set yourself in a career path down this, and understand that there are those opportunities and scholarships available for that, whether it be through computer science, whether it be through esports, playing competitively, whatever it might be.
Thank you so much for your time, Doctor. Let the audience know where they can find you and the companies that you work with online.
Sure. So, I mean, I'm on LinkedIn all the time, so you could search for me, Dr. Tom Czyz. Last name is CZYZ. You'll see it, I guess, on the screen there. You can find anything about Sly at drinkonthesly.com. You can find us on the App Store, any App Store. Just search Drink on the Sly because we have an app. And Instagram, all the socials are just Drink on the Sly. And that's where you'll find us. Any questions, ideas, anything you want to shoot me, I'm always there to respond, and never have my nose up in the air for anybody. So shoot me a text, whatever it might be. Shoot me a LinkedIn post, whatever it is. Happy to answer any question.
Doctor, happy birthday. I want to express my deep felt gratitude where, for me, there's so many things that I learned from this conversation and the opportunities for parents to be able to better understand the gaming and esports industry. So thank you so much, Doctor. And I will be reconnecting with you very soon.
No, I appreciate you inviting me. It's been a pleasure. And thanks so much. And I look forward to speaking with you again.
All right. Speak soon.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye now.